You're listening to the LA Football Podcast.
Hey, welcome back, Los Angeles, to the LA Football Show here on the LA Football Network, live on the Mightier 1090 ESPN Radio. If you're on radio, we just wrapped up some UCLA talk. Now we're going to get into some schedule releases for both our Rams and Chargers. On podcast, this will be your Rams edition as we talk about the Rams schedule release, and then we'll do Chargers later on in the program for those radio listeners. But joining me right now to do the schedules, my man Skinny T, Rams beat writer. What's up, brother? How we doing? Happy Friday.
Happy Friday to you. Yeah, doing fantastic. It's another beautiful day. It's in California. Can't complain about that at all.
Yeah, I mean, finally a beautiful day. It's been sweater weather for most of May, and I think it's going to hit like 75 today, right?
Gray May, June gloom. They got all sorts of names for the bad weather out here, but, we're known for the sunshine.
Yeah.
So it's good to have it back.
And we finally got it back. So show is always brought to you by our friends at BetOnline. Head to betonline.ag today. Use our promo code BELIEVE. That's BLEAV. Gets you a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. We talked about it earlier, but got the Laker game tonight you can bet on. Got some futures in college football win totals. Obviously the pros as well. So betonline.ag, promo code BELIEVE. Tell them the guys at the LA Football Network sent you. So, Rams, it's been a wild offseason, obviously. A lot of changes with this team. We knew the opponents for this team. We've known them for months now, and it was definitely not an easy opponent list based on how the Rams performed last year. Got kind of unlucky there. But now we see when they play them and what times they play them and what days they play them. Still a challenging schedule. Open up with what? Seattle?
Open up with Seattle.
And then we get the Niners at home right after.
Yeah, from the fire into the pot, into the fire, something, however that phrase goes. So, yeah, that's two divisional games right off the bat that is going to define. We're going to find out a lot about what this rookie-laden team is.
Yeah.
Going back, I was thinking that there would be maybe a chance that they win a few more games than they did last season. But after the draft and kind of how it looks like they're heading into this offseason, all these rookies on the roster, this depth chart is not very deep. And so now, there was the optimism of the draft and kind of excitement around all these UDFAs and the potential therein. But first 2 weeks, I mean, that's what are you thinking there? Coming out 2 weeks, 0-2.
Well, you look at the first 5 weeks, and I've said all along, like I actually believe this team can surprise people. When you look at quarterback play, Matthew Stafford, the only quarterback in the NFC with a Super Bowl ring. I would argue top probably 3 in the overall conference. Even when you look at how great the Niners are from top to bottom, there's definitely question marks there at quarterback. Is it going to be Purdy, which doesn't look like is going to be? Is there actual belief in Trey Lance? Seattle, even with how great Geno Smith played, I mean, you'd be hard found to find people that truly believe Geno Smith is like the answer for a Super Bowl run for Seattle, even with how good he played. So I think the Rams can surprise people strictly just from if Matthew Stafford's fully healthy, which he has been. But it's going to require all these new faces, all these rookies gelling very quickly and learning. And the hope was when the schedule came out was, okay, hopefully they'll get a couple easier games to kind of, get the groove going, get in the rhythm. And you look at the first 5 weeks, you mentioned Seattle, San Francisco, then you get Cincinnati in prime time, and then you get a somewhat potentially easy game with Indy, and then you go to the NFC champs and play Philly. So it's like those 5, you could be 1-4 theoretically, and that's going to look real bad for this team.
And even with Indianapolis, you're heading in there with Anthony Richardson, who I'm assuming is going to be the starter.
Yeah, they just released Nick Foles, right? So
yeah, and then you're looking at a brand new head coach, Shane Steichen, I believe, is there now. So it's it's a new regime. Obviously, they don't have a fantastic roster, but they still have Taylor's coming back from his injury. Their offensive line isn't great. So I mean, no cupcakes in the first half of this season, really, until you get to Arizona. And I'm kind of curious where Arizona will be, and the records of the Rams and the Arizona Cardinals heading into that game.
Yeah, it's and Indy, we were at the combine in Indy, you and I think we definitely, hopefully we can get out for that game. Hopefully we can go into that game and be at like a 3-0, we'd be 3-0, or we could be at least 2-1 going into that game and some good vibes there. Cause it's just so hard when you see how youthful this roster is. Now the benefit of how youthful it is, how do I say this politely or politically correct? But when you have young players, they may not get down on themselves or down on the season if they start off 0-3. Whereas a veteran team, it's like, all right, we're kind of packing it in. Like obviously veteran leaders keep the team going, but when guys have been there, done that, they can tell pretty quickly, well, this year is not it. This is not going to be it. Whereas when you have all these rookies and young guys, you might get that benefit of like, they're just trying to make the team. They're just scrapping every chance they get. We saw it last year at the end of the year when Baker Mayfield joined. You had a bunch of young faces and the Rams looked like they were having fun again. They played competitively. They obviously had that blowout win on Christmas, but you kind of had that benefit of young guys just out there happy to be there kind of thing. And so that's the hope in the beginning of the year, is outside of Stafford, Donald, and Kupp, you have a bunch of young guys that are like, hey, we're just trying to make this roster, make a name for ourselves, and go out and compete, and hopefully they can surprise some people.
The count is right around half of the team is rookies currently on the 90-man roster, which is insane.
Wild.
Half of the team hasn't been on an NFL field whatsoever.
And half of the half were undrafted.
Yeah, exactly. More so. I don't want to get too into the depth chart because we're talking schedule, but they do have kickers. They got a punter. They got a long snapper on the roster.
There's bodies there.
Rookies there, though, as well.
Yeah.
So,
yep.
Good news, kind of in that first half of the season, first few games of the season, is they're not facing off against the ferocious pass rushers that they kind of saw. So maybe the offensive line will have a little bit of time to kind of get their footing and find out where they're seated there. Obviously, you got San Francisco with Nick Bosa, always a challenge in Philadelphia. Big pass rushers there. So. Silver lining, I would say.
Yeah. Well, let's go through it. We can do some way too early predictions, go through it. But before we do, I know you just watched the schedule release video. Give me your thoughts on the Rams' poignant schedule release.
I'm gonna take a positive tack on it.
Okay. I'm
gonna say they are focused on football this year. They're not worried about any kind of peripheral production value for these kind of videos. I thought it was underwhelming.
Yeah.
Cheesy.
Yeah, I'm sure some people liked it. I understand kind of what they were getting at, kind of the TikTok realm of it and just kind of slapstick and throwing a bunch of videos together. I did like they threw in the corgi that was just recently picking the Warriors over the Lakers. And so they were able to snatch that up really quickly and having it pick the Rams over 2 games. But overall, it was not a very good schedule release video, in my opinion. It left a lot to be desired.
Grade that. We'll say a D.
It
needs improvement. Not a complete F. You got it up on the internet. Good job.
Well done. Yeah, some good edits in there, but not as good as the draft. So, okay.
So, in terms of strength of the schedule, my guy Warren Sharp over there, he's got the Rams as the 10th hardest schedule.
Mm-hmm.
So, how Sharp does it is they take into consideration the forecasted wins and losses. So, rather than some places that go through the previous year's schedule, the teams completely change.
Mm-hmm.
So this one I find to be a little bit more interesting. That's just a note.
What do you remember? Rams right now are projected 7.5? Is that their over/under win total?
7.5 is the over/under win total.
So okay, let's end with that. We'll give our. Well, okay. Before we go game by game, just off the top, seeing the schedule, do you think they go over 7.5 or under? Because I for sure throughout the offseason really feel like this is like a 9, potentially 10 win ceiling team. But again, if they go in this rough start and start off slow, it might be hard to climb out of it and get into that unless they go with the theme there, or the theory that I have that these young guys won't care and they're just going to grind every week.
Yeah. I mean, just because there is just potential on the roster right now at so many keys positions, I think, there's still plenty of offseason. There's Yannick Ngakoue still can be signed. There's free agents out there that would vastly improve this team. But as I'm looking at it now, I'm having a hard time finding 7 wins.
Yeah.
Let alone 8.
Yeah, it's going to be. And do you think 8 can get you in the playoffs in the NFC?
I think so.
8 and 9 can get you. Yeah. It won't win the division, but it could sneak into the wild card, seeing the landscape of the NFC, right?
And looking at some of these teams that are on the schedule, there's tons of questions about them. So, I think definitely 8 wins can get you in the playoffs.
All right. Well, hey, let's shoot for that, Ramley. You never know. All right. Well, let's go through it. So at Seattle, week 1, 1:25 kickoff time. Seattle's always a tough place to play. Bobby Wagner will be back in a Seahawks uniform after his 1-year rental with the Rams. We'll see if Geno Smith looks like Geno Smith of last year or Geno Smith of the 10 years prior when he's back, and if it was kind of a struck lightning in a bottle situation and surprise people, or if he'll really, look like a $100 million quarterback, which is the extension he got, that 3-year deal around $100 million. Who do you like in this one? Do you think the Rams? So I'll just say this. I think the Rams can surprise the Seahawks here. They won't be favored by any means, I wouldn't think. The Seahawks had a phenomenal draft. On paper, they had probably one of the best drafts, them and the Eagles. Our guy, Zach Charbonnet, is going to be up there in the Seattle area, which I was bummed to see him go there. But adding, Jackson Smith and Jigba, adding some great guys on defense, on the back end with their first pick in the first round. And then obviously all the returning guys. So, definitely a good team, well coached, obviously by Pete Carroll. Big question mark is what Geno Smith are they going to get? But I think the Rams can kind of play spoiler here. But what do you think?
Yeah, I think that looking at this depth chart, I'm thinking that this offense is just going to be too much for this young Rams defense. I'm calling this one a L column. I think there's still questions for Seattle's defense, so I don't think it's just a runaway.
Mm-hmm.
I think that between Van Jefferson, Cooper Kupp, Matthew Stafford can get it done, and it's going to be our first chance to see this revamped running game and see what the new offensive coordinator can bring to the table. So I think that'll be kind of a hinge point, is if the offenses can keep up with one another, and if they can put some points on the board, they can hang in there. But I'm thinking, young secondary going up against the likes of DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett. What is that run defense going to look like without Greg Gaines, without A'Shawn Robinson?
Mm-hmm.
Man.
Against a very good running football team. Kenneth Walker, Charbonnet.
DJ Dallas is still in the mix there. So, that is it's beginning to look like a formidable offense. We'll see what Smith and Jigba looks like going forward, but good offensive line too.
Yeah, definitely. And we'll see if they get the refs help like they did in week 18 last year as well. Finishing off the Rams season as the Rams were trying to beat them to get the Lions into the playoffs. Yeah, I think the Rams can definitely surprise them. But as we sit here in May, basically just looking on paper, it would be fanboyish of me to pick the Rams over the Seahawks, just seeing who they have on the roster and being a playoff team from last year. So I think.
But I have to say, the Geno Smith thing is a real question.
Yeah.
And as the year went along, they weren't able to really get the job done in the same way. Obviously, the Walker injury had something to do with that, but. Is he the real deal? Is he the Geno Smith of 2022 or of all the other years combined? There's more evidence to say that he's that guy than the other. But
yeah. It reminds me a lot, and I've said this before, but the situation where, Case Keenum, journeyman his whole career, obviously had a phenomenal college career, steps in for an injured Kirk Cousins in Minnesota, has a quote-unquote MVP-style season, then gets a contract with the Broncos after that and reverts back to not terrible, but just the Case Keenum we all knew. He was a journeyman, a kind of seasoned backup that could spot start, and he just kind of caught people off guard that year in Minnesota. Geno Smith has that similar vibe. That's nothing against him. I think his story is great, but we'll see what he does. Now, just based on the run game, the offensive line, and everything else, I still think they're probably too much right now based on what we know of the Rams and what we know of all the new starters. So 0-1, both of us, I think, starting with that. So then you get the Niners in LA. Rams fans got to show out for that one. Can't be all red in SoFi. But there's going to be a lot of red just because we've talked about a lot of Niner fans live here in the Los Angeles area. Defending NFC West champs, defending almost NFC champs, if not for potentially a Brock Purdy injury in that game against the Eagles. Lost their D coordinator in D'Amico Ryans, but still have basically every other piece on the defense. Very formidable offense outside of not knowing who plays quarterback. What do you like in this one?
So defenses take a step back. Usually, there's always some regression from defenses that are so dominant. So I'm betting on that. They lost some key pieces on defense as well. Both their previous defensive coordinators were in-house hires, younger guys. They had obviously both incredibly smart guys. They're not head coaches in the league, but they had that rah kind of. Anytime one of the Niners guys made a big play on defense, they went to D'Amico Ryans. They weren't going to Shanahan.
Mm-hmm.
He's kind of everybody's coalescing around him. So that's a big question. We'll only have a 1-game sample size to see how the Steve Wilkes era is for that defense. But biggest question is the most important position in football. Who's at the helm of that? Is it Sam Darnold?
Yeah, makes his return to LA, playing down the road at USC.
Yeah, we have no idea what Trey Lance is. We don't even know if the 49ers really like him at all. So all the good pieces in the world on offense doesn't mean a hill of beans if they don't have the right person throwing the ball. So
that, for how solid Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch have been overall in roster construction, and certainly they've done good in the draft on defense, and they've added some good pieces on offense. They are the biggest mystery when it comes to quarterback. Since they've been there together since 2017 when they were hired, there's just such a cloud over that position. They never commit to anything. They don't really know what they're doing. They have drafted high. They obviously traded up for Trey Lance. They traded picks for Jimmy Garoppolo. They extended Jimmy Garoppolo, and they didn't want to extend him. It's just, I don't think they know what they're doing at quarterback.
That's quite obvious. Yeah, that's very obvious. So I would say in terms of a win-loss here,
I'm going to go win.
Oh, wow.
I'm going to go steal a win.
All right.
And it's hard to say because of how bad the Rams and Sean McVay have been against the Niners.
All right. Here's the bold prediction. Jake Moody, their third-round pick, misses a few field goals in the friendly confines of SoFi, and the Rams rookie, whoever they decide to as place kicker, hits the winning field goal. They win by 1 point.
Their undrafted rookie versus a third-round pick. Nothing would make the Ramley happier than that. That would be a great, great win. And I don't know. Maybe I'm just want the win so bad for them, and I think there's just so much bad blood between these two teams. Like, I know this is a division rivalry with the Seahawks, with the Cardinals, but I just think it's so much bigger with the Niners, especially because the Rams, outside of the NFC Championship game 2 years ago, have not been able to beat the Niners during the regular season. Shanahan's had his number so well. So Donald's back from injury. Matthew Stafford's back from injury. Cooper Kupp's back from injury. And then you mentioned whatever kicker they decide makes the roster. Maybe he gets it done. So maybe I'm just thinking, but I'm going to go with the win here. So they go to 1-1. You have them losing or winning?
Like I said, they're winning by 1 point.
We have winning,
because, the silly decision to draft a kicker.
There we go. Okay, so 1-1. Now we get the first primetime game. Only 2 this year for the Rams. And they face their Super Bowl opponent in the Cincinnati Bengals. Should be another tough one.
Not only that, but they had a preseason joint practice, and things got heated. So there's probably going to be some fireworks heading into this game as well. Yeah, when you face each other in a Super Bowl and you lose a close game like that, there's obviously going to be some bad blood there. So we'll move, since this is non-division, we don't have to go too in depth. This is just, it's going to be tough for the Rams in this one, seeing how the Bengals have continued to get better since that Super Bowl appearance. They seem to be a year ahead in making the Super Bowl, but last year another very good team and just kind of slipped up in the playoffs there. But Joey B's great. It comes down again to that young secondary we talked about with Seattle, and you look at that young secondary covering the likes of Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, all these other weapons they have, and I just don't think they have enough to slow them down. I'm in total agreement with you there. Unfortunately, I think this one's getting chalked up in the L category. Yeah, I'll go L as well.
So 2-2. Oh, excuse me. 1-2.
1-2.
Heading to Indy. Again, hopefully LAFB will be there. Maybe we'll do a tailgate out there, see our good buddy that lives in the area that we saw. That would be a lot of fun. Great stadium in Lucas Oil.
Just a good time.
Yes.
Slippery noodle. We're not wearing slippery noodle shirts.
Should have worn my shirt had I known we were going to drop it on the pod. Okay, let me ask you this. Before we even predict, who do you think, this is week 4 now, who's starting? Gardner Minshew or Anthony Richardson for the Colts?
I want to bet on Anthony Richardson.
Or Sam Ehlinger, but I don't think either of those think he'd be starting.
I'm going to go. I'm going to say Anthony Richardson is the starting quarterback, even week 1. So I think they're just going to roll with that. I'm not sure what their schedule's looking like. Let's click on that tab real quick. They actually have a Jacksonville, Houston, so they could be rolling in to this game with 500, above 500. So
potentially,
yeah, I think that he just offers so much upside with his legs. It's going to be interesting to see what Steichen's doing at that point.
And seeing what Steichen did in Philly the last few years with Jalen Hurts, and what makes Steichen, I think, such an interesting young head coach for a first-time head coach. But he's coached a number of different style quarterbacks too. Obviously, with his time with the Chargers, coach Phillip Rivers, and then coach Justin Herbert, and then goes over to Philly, where starts off with Carson Wentz, and then they transition to Jalen Hurts. It was Jalen Hurts basically from the get-go once that coaching staff got there. But certainly seeing what the Eagles did the last year or two, Anthony Richardson makes the most sense from the get-go just to roll with that. And, we'll see how that stacks up against the Rams. Now, I think I like the Rams in this one.
I'm going to stick with the Rams on this one. If they can just contain Anthony Richardson, it's good. Their offense is going to look a little bit like Chicago's did last season, where it's a lot of fields just making stuff happen.
Yeah.
So, which isn't a great place you want to be. So, the edge rushers and taking down Richardson is going to be a tough one for those rookies, and the speed against Michael Hoyt is going to be tough. But I'm sticking.
Steal that edge.
There's some mismatches there, but I just think McVay, lots of experience. They're going to show up for this one. So, yep.
Yeah.
We're gonna go 2-2 here.
2-2. Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I'll give the nod to the veteran in McVay against the first time head coach in Steichen. So, all right, on to week 5. Who we got in week 5? You have
Philadelphia.
Oh yeah. Good luck in Philly, right?
Yep, in Philly.
Philly lost a few guys in free agency, and then just completely replenished in the draft, having. Knocking that first round out of the park and having some other great selections as well. They did lose, obviously, both coordinators, Jim Steichen, we just mentioned, and then they lost their defensive coordinator, who's now the head coach of the Cardinals. So there's always an interest there of how that transition looks when you move guys up into those roles. But
correction, it will be at
SoFi. You're right. Thank you. At SoFi. So we may be at a tailgate for that too. We met some Philly guys down before the draft that may be joining us. Yeah, that we met down in Orange County. So I don't think we need to spend a ton of time on this one. This is probably a loss. This will be real tough for the Rams to come out on this one, just with the youth they have.
Yeah, AJ Brown, a guy like AJ Brown is going to run roughshod over this secondary. That's all I have to say about that. That's 2-3.
2-3. All right. Next we got.
Arizona.
Back to 500, baby.
Yep. They're going to be bad. Arizona's going to be bad.
I mean, and we could say this too. Their schedule at least was 1,000 times worse than what the Rams put out.
Oh, is that right? I didn't see that one.
It was literally Murray and Hopkins playing catch, and then the ball fell, and the schedule popped up on the screen. That was it.
It sounds like what the season is kind of going to look like. A little bit of those two playing catch and see what happens. And
hope for the best, and probably not going to work out. Maybe we'll talk more about them later, but I think we can just say Rams get back to 500 here, right?
I think so. 3-3.
If the Niners have been the McVay's kryptonite, the Cardinals have certainly been his breath of fresh air, if you will.
Yeah, and new head coach there, Jonathan Gannon's there. So that'll be fun to watch, kind of what they morph into.
Yeah. And then they welcome Pittsburgh to SoFi.
Coming into town. Pittsburgh, for me, is a huge question mark.
Yeah.
they're gonna have a great defense. They always do. They always kind of seem to figure out how to be a good football team. Obviously, great head coach there.
Yep. Always competitive.
Always competitive. The Kenny Pickett era didn't get off to a great start.
Yeah.
I think they have some good pieces on that offense, but I don't think this is going to be an overwhelming offense for the Rams to compete with.
Yeah, they added some receivers, most notably Allen Robinson, former estranged Ram for a few weeks.
Yeah.
He'll be there. They obviously have some great youth at receiver. But just with what we've seen from Pickett thus far, I don't think it's going to be an overpowering of this Rams secondary like we'll see with Seattle, like we'll see with Philly, like we'll see with some of these other squads. So this will probably be a hard-fought game, probably an ugly game. It's going to be, Najee Harris versus Cam Akers, who kind of comes out on top in the running quota. But I think I'm going to go with the Rams here. Moving to 4-3, a winning record.
This is a
that
hard
7.5 over-under is looking pretty good right now.
Other than, obviously Philly and the 49ers, TJ Watt's just such a stud. Yeah, I mean, just to kind of keep things interesting, I think they're going to drop that game.
Okay.
They just have too many stalwarts, too many vets, and they're, so I'm at 3-4, you're at
4-3. All right, we'll start rolling through these quick now. So at Dallas next game. Dallas is just a team. I never believe in Dallas, but they do have a talented roster. But the big question mark with them this year is, after moving on from Kellen Moore and Mike McCarthy taking full reins of the offense, is that going to be good or is that going to be bad? And it's hard to say.
That's a huge question mark. I will not bet on Mike McCarthy.
Yeah.
I'm not picking him.
I won't either. However, this game being in Dallas with how stacked that roster is, I think take the Cowboys to win for now.
Another former receiver coming home. Well, I guess it's not coming home, but playing against a former team. They added Brandon Cooks to the roster, which I think is it's a great add for them. It's going to be tough. Tony Pollard is going to have a good game as well.
Yeah, they got some good players there. So okay, so I have them dropping 4-4.
Carson. I'm going to say 3-5.
So loss as well. Okay, now they have to travel yet again to Lambeau to play the Packers, but the Aaron Rodgers-less Packers.
Yep.
Talented roster, but at this point, I have nothing to go off of Jordan Love. So I actually like the Rams in this game to finally get revenge at Lambeau. Shouldn't be as cold yet. What are we in? Early November? You never know what you're going to get in Lambeau. Could be freezing already, but maybe we'll get lucky and get like a 55-degree weather day out there in early November. Again, just have no knowledge at this point of May what Jordan Love will look like. So I'm going to go with Stafford and the Rams.
And they really didn't do a lot this offseason to kind of improve that offense.
Yeah.
I think they've added a couple pieces, but obviously nothing that's bringing to memory. So I like the Rams going 4-5 here, coming out of Green Bay. Bye week, week 10 bye week.
I like the week 10 bye week.
That's a good place for them. Obviously last season the bye week just seemed too far out of reach.
Yeah.
And they just wanted to get healthy, and it was just too far out.
Yeah. This is kind of almost smack dab in the middle, get you recalibrate a little bit before you go up to or go host the Seahawks. So let's do this quickly because obviously we're running out of time here. Seattle, Arizona, Cleveland, the next three. What do you see them going down this stretch?
I think
because I'm at 5 wins, right?
You're at 5 and I'm at 4.
I'm at 5-4 and you're at 4-5, right? Yeah.
I think they pick up one more win at Arizona. I think Cleveland starts to turn it on.
Cleveland's going to be interesting because obviously they were a playoff team and the whole Deshaun Watson thing just did not look good last year. But if he returns to form, just speaking strictly as a quarterback, that's another talented roster. And Stefanski, obviously a good coach.
It'll be he's going to have a whole offseason to prepare for this, and last season he didn't have all that.
So 1-2 down that stretch.
Yeah,
I'll go 1-2 also. So I have him now at 6 wins. You're at 5 wins. Next 3 we get the Ravens, the Washington Commanders, and the New Orleans Saints.
I think they pick up 2 here. I think they drop in Baltimore and they win Washington and New Orleans. I'm not high on New Orleans. I'm not a big Derek Carr guy.
Yeah. I agree.
I got the right car.
Got the right car. There you go. Well done. I like it too. 2-1 here. So I have him up to 7 wins now. So we're at almost that 7.5 threshold for the final 2 games. You get the New York Giants and finish the season against the Niners, which the way I'm playing it out will be probably whether you make the playoffs or not. So final two, what you got?
Again, I'm not a big believer in New York either. I don't think they'll have as good of a season as they did last season. Yep. I don't think their playing style is sustainable. Saquon Barkley can get hurt. Daniel Jones can get hurt just because of how much running they're having to do. So I'm gonna say that's a win, and then I think San Francisco is gonna come back with a vengeance, and I think they're going to be firing on all cylinders, and they'll have the quarterback situation figured out at this point. So I think I'm sorry, Rams fans, trying to be somewhat realistic in this.
Yes, as you should be.
Yeah.
I do agree with you. I think they go 1-1 in this stretch. I think the Giants surprised a lot of people last year, won't do as much this year. Rams get one there. And I think the Niners by then, if they believe Brock Purdy's the guy, he'll be healthy by then. Or if Trey Lance is the guy, you had 17 games or 16 games to get ready. So I think they'll drop that, meaning they get to that 8 wins, so the over 7.5. Will that be enough for the playoffs? Time will tell. But that's going to do it for our Rams talk of the show.
You're listening to the LA Football Podcast.